Let's rock and roll. Let's do it. The button is pushed.
We're in it.
We're here again, and with a new friend, Danii.
Yay!
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. So, I guess I was referred. No, you were referred to me
yes.
through a mutual friend, Juan.
Yep.
And one of the first things that you had talked to me about was like you're pretty spiritual person. You're,
I am.
Into energies and all that kind of stuff. And I guess I'm curious about what your story is with like your connection to spirituality.
Yeah, totally.
How is it?
Oh, it's a weird story. Lots of twists.
Okay. Go for it.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess always I was able to kind of hear things that other people couldn't hear, but wasn't really aware of it. And I had a lot of like fear as a child and anxiety surrounding the fact that like so-and-so was standing over my bed or someone would call my name. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And I had a really eccentric grandmother that both nurtured and scared the crap out of me, I guess, equally. So for the longest time, I thought it was very like standard. And then I realized it wasn't standard. And I was like, nope, this is not for me.
Yeah.
And totally shut it down. And then I thought for sure for a good amount of years that I definitely had schizophrenia.
Okay.
Legitimately.
Yeah, it seems like most people who have schizophrenia, in just my opinion, probably had that sort of awakening. And then when they told people about it, everyone was like, we need to drug you.
Yeah.
We need to drug
totally.
the fuck out of you because
So,
this
like,
is not okay.
I mean, I think like mental health and spirituality are like a fine line. And I think a lot of people are walking that line. And so there are times when one is one and one is the other. But I think like the vast majority of people are probably having some experiences that cross over and they just don't know it because the supports are different.
Right,
Yeah.
for sure. And I guess the weird thing sometimes that I think about is the way people see reality. Like we don't know how other people are seeing things, so maybe we are picking up on things that other people necessarily don't. Or
Totally.
do. Like we don't know for sure.
It's like all perception, right?
Yeah.
And environment, like nature versus nurture. Like I'm big on like the links between psychology and spirituality.
Okay.
Or, like all of these other senses that are out here. I think the human brain is a totally undiscovered, like the ocean, like it goes so much deeper than we know. And so
Absolutely.
we're tapping into things and labeling them kind of trigger happy.
Okay.
I think we basically, well, no, that's not entirely true. We keep stopping our growth on this whole like consciousness thing because I think the psychology and like all that jazz is like the science to interpret spirituality.
That's perfect.
And that spirituality and consciousness is almost so intertwined that they're inseparable. But we had like philosophers like all the way back, Socrates and Plato and shit like that, talking about consciousness. And we've had this like branching off into the sciences of what we can prove is like the mind does in certain scenarios and all this jazz. But the exploration of like true and absolute consciousness and like what do they call it? There was that entire division of the government that
I
that
just
did
watched
the
a documentary.
remote viewing
Yes.
shit where they had like irrefusable results, like they were a massive success.
And then they like shut it down
and
because it's terrifying.
Yeah, because it's like I don't
Yeah.
want people to just be able to teleport anywhere at
Oh my
any
gosh.
point in time and just see shit.
I wish I could remember the documentary I just watched. It's literally about it.
I have his app, the doctor's app. He made that ESP app. It's really, really weird.
Oh, yeah.
It's just it's 4 colors, and randomly behind one of the colors is a beautiful picture, and like it'll ring like a bell if you get it right. And there's
That's
no
so
indicators.
cool.
There's no way to predict the pattern. It's absolutely random. And if you get 15 or more out of 20 twice, they want you to contact the institute because you're basically a mutant.
Okay, so I don't want the app. Thank you.
It's really cool. I have
no experiments, please.
I haven't gotten past 12 out of 20,
Yeah.
so I had no reason to
I
call them.
played around with it for a little bit and then I got bored. So
I literally nope. That's
It's
a no-go.
really weird. No, it's one of those things where you like sit there and you like close your eyes and you get really, really into that clear state, and then your thumb will like automatically like twitch, and you'll like get it. And you'll like get
You're
it
like,
again, and
whoa.
you'll get it again, and you'll be like, "Oh, now I'm getting cocky," and you lose it.
Yeah, so I mean, but that's like a really good model for everything. That like
Yeah, I mean, basically what we were talking about a little bit earlier
Yeah.
about this experience for you.
Exactly. And I mean, it's a weird thing because, you know, a lot of my hangups pertain to Hollywood and cultural, you know, pop culture references and things. And so like people will be like, well, what do you do? And I have progressively hated the word psychic, medium, intuitive, because there's so many bad attachments. I think most people have a lot of these senses, and because it's not like the Hollywood concrete like fireworks in your head, they're totally unaware of it. It's so much more subtle than that, especially to start. And
for sure. Yeah, and that's something that I don't know if you know who Teal Swan is.
I don't.
But she's considers herself, I guess, intuitive in some way, or a medium in some way. But she says the same stuff. How everybody has some sense of that in them. It just depends on like to what level you have access to.
Well, it's like Whitney Houston,
or how much you train it.
Yeah, you know? She's like, she was born and she had this like raw, crazy singing voice, right?
My cat's so handsome.
He is cute.
Now he's immortalized.
I'll never be Whitney Houston, no matter how much I go to vocal lessons, but my voice will definitely improve, and there's a science to that. You exercise the muscle and it gets stronger, right? And then you can do more. It's the same thing. So, I mean, I'm not saying that I'm out here Whitney Houstoning around in the psychic realms, but I'm saying like for whatever reason, my muscle is just more flexed to start, I think, and most people in some regard can catch up. They just have to want to and
for sure
be open to it.
For sure, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a natural talent and then you never develop it, it always remains just that level. But if you don't have that natural talent and you develop it over years and years and you never stop working at it, you're probably going to be a lot better than someone who's like ridiculously talented at start and never gives it a go. I feel like we all should be still trying to use the force like all the time.
Absolutely. Well, and like I got super lucky that serendipitously I ended up with a lot of cool mentors, because I think I was another like $10 word here that I actually generally can't stand for the stuff that's attached to it, but I think I was like manifesting that, right? Because I went through this huge period of fearing it. And I was probably psychologically in somewhat of a lower place. And so, you know, the whole your vibe attracts your tribe. Well, that applies to all realms. Yeah. And so I was attracting some not so great energies, right? And I was like, holy cow, this is crazy. I felt like I was living in the movie Insidious. Yeah. I mean, obviously not as, you know, black and white as that. But so then I was like, no, I'm done with this. And I totally shut it down. And then it was through like other things happening that I was like, okay, tap in and take control, and then you can handle it. And I just started from there, and it was pretty like launched into it.
Yeah, totally.
It's cool.
It's interesting. I mean, like on a journey of that right now, of like trying to realign my internal shit, because like the 2020 was a freaking like monster for me.
I'm sorry.
It was an absolute monster, but it's a catalyst. It's a catalyst forward, and I can feel it being that thing.
Catalyst, catapult.
Yeah, something.
You're getting thrown in.
I mean, I keep telling him like, hey, you were sitting down and you were really asking for certain things in your life to change. You wanted to be better in this way. You wanted your life to go better in this way. You wanted this to change. You wanted this to change. The universe was like, okay, there's only one way I can get you to do all of that.
Boom.
I'm going to fuck your shit up. Hey, you were like, that's not exactly what oh, shit.
It never works that way, though.
It never does.
It's the dark night of the soul. Have you guys heard of that?
Yeah. If you ask for like radical change to be better, you're going to get shit. Yeah. You're not going to get it like, here's this perfect situation. It's going to be like your shit's going to get rocked.
Yeah, I remember very specifically like my grandma died back in October.
I'm sorry.
And after that happened, I like got super, super depressed. Sure. Like I couldn't, I was very close with her, and I couldn't like function at all in my life. And I had asked like very specifically, like, because I'm big into shadow work, and we talked a little bit about that online. And I was talking to my ex-girlfriend at the time about how like I kind of felt like this was something for me. And I remember specifically asking like, how do I find like the most corrupt part in myself that I need to get in touch with? I don't know how to do it. And then literally a month later, my mom died.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry.
So it was like, it just absolutely like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like the way that things unfolded. I can't even explain the amount of just changing the way that I thought my life was going.
Yep.
And then
Nothing is linear.
The direction just went like complete 180 on me, and I was like, oh God,
yeah,
what's happening?
You were, it made you stop looking out and start looking in, and that's like the first steps. And I don't know, that's been kind of a thing for me too. The worse it gets, the more in tune I get, as long as I can kind of stay ahead of the emotion and be an observer of what I'm going through in the circumstances, instead of like giving in and surrendering to it fully,
right,
from a perspective of I have no control here.
Yeah, for sure. That's a hard one. The control thing is hard. Being able to release control, because that's something that I've always struggled with.
Yeah.
I'm a very I guess my intellectual side is like a superpower, but also like a massive curse at the same time.
Yep.
Because I always need to fix things.
Yep.
I always need to fix problems and fix.
Oh, we are so the same in that.
And like if there's something going wrong in my life in some way, like I literally cannot let go until like I figure out what the problem is and fix it.
Yeah.
And like I'm at a point now where it's like I have no choice. Like I have to.
Yeah.
Like I absolutely have to, because the more that I try and go in and tinker with things, it's just the worse it gets.
It's the path. It's like it's all purposeful, I had so random. I don't even really know her at all, but we became friends on Facebook through like a mutual friend. I don't know. It was so weird. I couldn't even really tell you. And every once in a while I interact with her posts because I'm like an interactive person anyways, clearly. And she is going through some things with her family, and I was like, okay, I usually like do this whole preface, like, I don't want to offend you, da 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 da. And I then go in and I'm like, I'm really sorry you're going through this, because that's the like standard thing to say. And I do feel that, right? But it is purposeful, like all of it. And, my mom struggles with the control thing and like the understanding, like the why. Like we had a friend whose infant passed away, and she was like, there's no good reason for this.
Yeah.
And I was like, I understand that the human experience tells you that, but like, I don't know how deep you guys want to get here, but I was like, I have a theory, Mom. And she's like, oh, it's hard to grasp though. Yeah. Like, I think I have it figured out. And I know that's like a really arrogant statement, which is where you stopped me before. I know that sounds so messy, but I really do to some degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
As long as there's the quantifier of to some degree, I'm okay with it.
Of course.
As long as that's there.
As long as no one's sitting here being like, I got it all, guys.
Boom.
I understand existence.
No.
I'm like, I feel like most of our existence is
defeat the
supposed to
purpose.
continue trying to figure out existence.
I think I don't know the reasoning, definitely, but I think I've like cracked a little bit of the algorithm.
Okay.
If that makes
I get
sense.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you got?
Yeah. Like, yeah, go for it.
Are you sure?
I'm curious.
Okay, like
go
you
for
have
it.
to stop me to
No,
elaborate, or okay, this is crazy.
Okay. If I need elaboration.
So are you talking like in pertaining to that one circumstance?
I'm talking pertaining, I guess, into like the whole point in general, which then
like
encompasses the points of suffering and all else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like my
I'm with
whole,
you.
Yeah,
I think
are
about
you?
this stuff all the time.
Good,
so.
me too. Ooh,
I'm with you.
Because we're fixers, right?
Yes.
So I need to know like what's going on so I can fix it.
Yes, exactly.
So I guess like I struggle with the corniness of presentation, so I'm gonna like flounder through that because it is kind of corny sounding.
Okay.
I definitely first off believe in reincarnation. I can't totally define that concretely for you. So like, am I going to sit here and say that you weren't an owl at some point? I'm not going to say that. Do I think you were an owl? I don't know. That's hard for me to grasp. But as it pertains to like the human form anyways, or the soul form, the energetic form, definitely I think we're many times recycled. And I think, I don't know how to tell you like what level you're at, but like for the sake of throwing around numbers so it's logical, if you're at a level 20 and I'm at a level 30, then I've acquired like more personal traits than you have that a developed soul would kind of have. And I would like compare that to like, okay, if we talk about developed souls, like Gandhi, Christ, which is so controversial, right? Buddha. But like history gives us all these figureheads, whether religious or political or just spiritual or what have you, that had this just consciousness about them, right? That others don't have. For whatever reason, they've obviously recycled more times. And I think, you know, each life is the point of it is to acquire a handful of traits. We'll say 2 for being concrete, right? So here today, you're here to learn compassion and perseverance.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be the same as me. Maybe I already have those, maybe I don't, but maybe I'm here to learn self-sacrifice and being humble.
Yeah.
And so the lessons you're learning and the things that you come through pertain to you acquiring those. And I think hell, by standard definitions, right, like the bad stuff, is when you're kind of refusing your purpose.
Yeah.
And then you are stagnant.
Yeah, living out of alignment with that.
Yeah. And then you live over and over so stagnant because everyone is growing and glowing around you and you're just recycling through. And I think, you know, addiction is a huge factor for a lot of people in that. Like it causes stagnancy.
Yeah.
And so like that's kind of my perspective on that. So like in the taking it back to what my mom was saying about why did this infant die? And I was like, you know, do I want to experience that? Absolutely not. You know, I have children. I'm a mother. It kills me. But on the flip side of that, if you knew this family prior to this infant, if especially the father, if the development of the soul is so apparent and the things that it did for each of them in their own ways, right down to the siblings that are young, it's crazy. And I have to believe like maybe that infant's purpose, however short in this time, was self-sacrifice. Because isn't that like an ultimate trait to acquire?
Yeah.
Like I sacrificed myself to evolve these 4 other people in my very short journey.
Yeah. That's something that Teal talks about a lot too.
Really?
Yeah.
I love her already.
That there is no there's nothing that happens without purpose in the universe, like regardless of the suffering.
I mean, look at how many like mothers have made crazy awesome foundations in the name of like children that got killed by drunk drivers or murderers. Like, I'm sorry that it came out of tragedy, but it's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the human stuff, I think the best human stuff comes out of tragedy. Like whenever we do something absolutely mind-blowing, it's out of some sort of place of tragedy.
Yeah. Nicholas Sparks, he said, ooh, that's so corny. He said, without suffering, there's no compassion.
Yeah. It's true. That's something that, you know, I have learned in my life because I've been so out of alignment for so long. Like I like heavy into like addictive behaviors and stuff. Not substances, but distractions, I guess. Video game addiction. Yeah,
you're clinging to being
video game addiction.
Yeah, reality within your control.
Right, and because there was so many things that have felt out of control for me for a long time that, and the thing is about video games. This is the thing about video games. They are so dangerous for men. Yeah. Because they're literally like
the world at your fingertips.
They're literally like actually designed algorithmic programs that hijack your sense of like your dopamine systems, you know, the things that it's like, I'm doing something important and meaningful and awesome. And
it's an instant gratification trigger. Boom, boom, boom. I feel it. I'm happy. I'm great. This is wonderful. I conquered the world today.
Video games are an absolute like monster. Yeah. And that's why I have to like very, very cautiously dip in now at this point, because it had been such a problem for me that I let many portions of my life fall apart, like, and just being like, yeah, as long as I have my video games, I'm
it's
okay.
Escapism, though.
Right. It's insane. The amount of it makes you feel like you're doing something meaningful. Yeah. But you're not actually doing something meaningful.
You know, like, that is parallel to, like, hallucinogenics or weed. Yeah. I am a big proponent and supporter of those things, but probably from a different perspective than other people are. So, like, I religiously smoked weed for, like, 11 years. And my life at that point was a hot mess by definition. And that was something that I think my body and mind were asking for as a leveler at the time. But there's a very fine line that you have to walk between knowing that I can medicate productively and knowing that I can medicate into not feeling and not doing. Yeah. And then knowing when I don't need the medication at all anymore. Right. And so, like, I quit smoking weed like probably like 8 years ago, and I don't drink and I don't do any of that stuff. Not because I think it's bad. It's just like now I can't. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
You use it as a crutch until you get to where you need to be healed.
Right. That's exactly where I'm at. Like, I haven't drank in 2 years. It's been 2 years for me since I drank, and that started out with like medical at first, but now I'm just
me too.
I'm more focused on, you know, trying to create, I guess, at this point.
Well, and like people do acid.
Yes. I used to.
Yeah.
And I had some bad experiences.
I bet you did, because I definitely think it takes you to definitely a more open perception and other realms of things, for lack of a better way to put it. But it's also partially a synthetic experience. So you've allowed something synthetic to hijack your ability to regulate what tapping in is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so you're having all of this crazy sensory experience, but without the emotional wherewithal to process it so that it's purposeful, like everything is supposed to be.
For sure.
So like acid's one that like I have never touched. I have done DMT a couple of times, and that was crazy.
Yeah.
And I'll never do it again.
Yeah. I've done a fair share of psychedelics, and that's the point that I got. There was somebody that was talking on Joe Rogan's podcast, actually.
Oh, his is crazy too.
About the psychedelic stuff. There's another guy that I watch on YouTube who says, once you get the message, hang up the phone.
Yep.
When you get the message, hang up the phone.
That's
like,
it.
Like when you use it and you can break through and you can see that there's more and you have that.
Stop and figure out how to do it yourself.
Yes.
Yep.
Like when you get the message, hang up the phone. Otherwise, you're just going to be you're
in the static. You're going to get lost to it.
There's a potential that you will hurt yourself more than you will help yourself if you go too deep.
Well, and the last time I did DMT, this is going to sound so whacked. It's crazy. Well, I went to the other place, wherever that is, however you define that. And I met energy, and it was like kind of mocking me. And it was like, you can call me the Elephant King, and like, I don't know, it looked like Buddha, but like an elephant, not Ganesha, because it wasn't identifying as a female anyway. And it was like, why are you here? Like, you know better than this. You're not supposed to be here. You come when you're called. You don't come knocking. And you're being arrogant, and there are no shortcuts. So do it right or don't do it. And I don't want to see you here like this again. And I was like, oh my God.
That's actually fucking funny. That's not the first time I've heard DMT. The like beings on the other side being like, get the fuck out of here.
What are you doing here? Stop.
He's like, you come here all the time when you dream. We bring you here. We call you. You are not the ruler of this domain. And
one of my exes had this time where she was in a situation where for multiple nights she was able to do DMT safely, and it was like the second or third night that she like blasted off, and a bunch of like, she described it as a bunch of like goblins or something like that, or like almost Smurfs or trolls or something came over, and they were like, no, get the fuck out, get like ushering her back out the door or something like that.
And I mean, it was like a loving energy, but it was very like, you do this the right way or you don't. Like, know it's here. Stop.
And that does sort of play on a good feeling vibe. For whatever reason, like you come when you're called, you don't come knocking. Like that's gonna stick with me for a minute.
I'm glad. Good. I love catchphrases.
Right. Yeah, and that's a part. I mean, I think that's part of the control thing that we as humans have as well, where it's like, needing to know or wanting to go deeper. It's like it falls into the same realm as the emotional stuff as well. Like so many people want to cover the emotion or take steps to get themselves outside of outside of it, and what typically ends up happening is they just recycle.
Yep.
They just recycle the same problem. Like when you move away from a situation that or something internally that is causing you pain, when you reroute yourself, it's just that you're just recycling yourself back. You're gonna experience the same thing again.
I think there's a total balance within that though, because there's a level of there's a balance with every single one of these spiritual teachings, because I've noticed that I can go around and I can recycle if I'm being blatant about it. But if I go and I'm just stuck in the feelings, it's the exact same thing as me going around again, only I stay in the exact same spot.
Well, because you're not unpacking.
So there's like a weird, but you can stay in that space and never unpack and think that you're doing good.
Well,
but what you're just doing is kind of sitting. Like I've just been sitting for the last like 9 months, like unpacking stuff, like doing the work, like doing all the aspects, writing in journals, doing all that stuff. And I finally started feeling better when I was like, I'm fucking sick of you making excuses for me, dude. Like, let's just fucking start moving. And then the energy of me being like, no, we need to stay here and be sad. It turned into like something I could like face and be like, no, like we've spent enough time being just sad in it, and now we need to do something. I was like mixed on the other side of balance. Like I've been too gentle with myself in the like spiritual capacity. It's like I took a corrupted version of the spiritual teachings of like, make sure you give yourself time and you're really understanding.
It's toxic positivity.
Yeah. Like I went too far into that space where I was excusing myself for everything.
Well,
and suddenly I didn't go anywhere.
Man, like
that love and light can fucking
bad
destroy
news
you,
sometimes,
yo.
dude.
Yeah.
Start you back to zero.
I've been talking a lot about this, like just in general, you know, the woke culture. I struggle with that because it is very much spiritual gaslighting.
Yes.
It's a big bunch of bullshit. It's not real.
Totally.
You are not going to be love and light all the time. It is about taking the love and the light in a situation and taking the tragedy and the darkness, right? And marrying them in a way that's like, okay, these both are here and present in almost everything on some scale. And what is constructive to me to focus on right now? And then how do I propel myself into the next part of what that means being reasonable?
Yeah, totally. We're
getting so many cat visitors. I love it.
I know. I don't know what these guys are going crazy. Of course, like usual.
Hims just wants to be involved.
Yeah, they all want to be
We're in
involved.
love. Good vibes. He feels them.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the entire emotional journey of life is the bro.
Let him come here. He's coming.
Okay.
Oh lordy, come here,
Sure.
Cass. Hi.
Go for it.
What's up,
I mean, we're
bud?
kind of busy right now though, so you gotta do your thing.
I love you.
Anyway, yeah, the emotional journey of life is like it can get very confusing at times because it's like, do I?
He wants to sing a little song.
The distractions always the distractions.
Those are positive distractions.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I shocked him. Sorry.
But yeah, that's like figuring out which direction to go is hard sometimes. You know,
Yeah.
like do I grab in and do I hold on to this thing and try and figure it out, or do I let go and just allow it to be what it is for now?
The path
you know?
is one, so I kind of feel like for as many reroutes or whatever that you need to take, I try to stop at a point in the day and say, do I understand myself and my day better than I did when I started? And most of the time the answer is no.
Yeah.
But I feel like if we have a good couple of productive days in a week where average it out, like the law of averages, right? Like science. If I can add up all the days and hours and I can average to being like 73% happy, that just felt like a good number. It doesn't mean anything. That's solid, right?
Yeah.
And that's a good C. And C is, you're right there.
For sure.
I think
for sure.
A is neurotic, right?
Yeah.
And F, like you ain't even trying.
Yeah.
So a good solid C.
C is a happy average.
Happy
Like
medium.
I want to flow. We get really stuck in forcing.
Yeah.
And if you're in force mode, there's no flow. Can't be.
Definitely. Yeah, forcing does not work. It doesn't. There's this rubber band effect that happens.
Ooh.
Like, you know, if something
Snap
is
back.
if something like either internally or externally is happening that you don't like if you really if you fight it and you fight against it, there's going to be this like.
And people
There's
struggle
this
with
pullback.
awareness, and I think they miss that. Actually, that's a really good analogy. When I see people, so I see people for all sorts of things, right? I don't know how to classify it, but people end up in my doorway, and a big one that I often tell people like to learn self-awareness is wearing a rubber band on their wrist, right? And I tell them every time you have like a self-deprecating thought, you got to snap that rubber band because the human psyche is really tied to external experience, right? So if you can make it physical, then it's more meaningful to start. And then you need to fake it till you make it, which is against what I just said. Ooh, contradictory.
Yeah.
But you need to force a positive thought. So I was like, gratitude. I know it sounds corny. Everybody talks about it, but
Hey, gratitude
goes
works,
a long
yo.
way.
And on Big Mouth,
Yeah.
you've got the gratitude, and the gratitude
Boom.
is awesome. Everybody should get a gratitude.
yeah, so get your rubber band or your toad and snap yourself and say like, yo, I just had a self-deprecating thought and I love my cat. And in 21 days, I swear to God, your self-awareness will be miles beyond what it was before.
Yeah.
And then you can let go of your rubber
That's a
band.
good-
Since we've been
that's a good idea.
Since
Yeah.
we've been talking about rubber bands so much, my brain made an analogy, or maybe it's a metaphor. Whatever this is.
Maybe it's not your brain,
So
maybe it's spirit.
It's like you're trying to grow and you're trying to do the right thing in a hard situation. And on one side, you're like emotionally validating and like over compassioning and like doing everything good. You're letting yourself go because you're like, I got to be gentler and gentler and gentler to myself. And there's this like pull. You can feel it getting stronger and stronger. And on the other side, you feel for like forcing it and like trying to go harder and harder and just like get through it all, there's that exact same pull. So what we're all trying to do is stay within that comfort where we're not feeling that pull in any one direction. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I feel like, I don't know, when you were doing that motion, I was hearing in my mind like a whoa, whoa, whoa sound. And that's very soothing.
I like that.
It's a binaural beat, right? Those are good for you.
Yeah.
Probably.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, like that's kind of what the psychic experience is though. So like a lot of people I think ignore intuitive moments because it's not the fireworks that Hollywood makes it out to be. And maybe those people are having valid experiences like the Hollywood medium or whatever. I don't know. It's not for me to judge.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, you know, if you think of a childhood memory, like when you were a kid and walk yourself through something very specific, you can remember the shirt that uncle was wearing at your birthday party, and you can remember blowing out your candles, and you can hear the voices, right? And you play that whole mental movie in your mind's eye, and that just happens there. And that's exactly what tapping in is like. Exactly. Except they're not my memories, and it's not something past tense. It's something that's happening now to me that is foreign to me otherwise. And I don't know why.
Wow.
And that's exactly what it's like.
That's crazy.
Since we're talking about that sounds kind of like an ESP thing. I just wanted to tag this. That ESP trainer I was talking about, it's called that on the App Store, and it's developed under a NASA program by Russell Targ at the Stanford Research Institute. So it's not some made up shit. This is like the realist real.
Listen, if you're trying to
These
dive
things
in
are coming out
without, using substances, which I highly recommend first, the Gaia channel on Prime, if you can spare the $8 a month for the subscription, get you some documentaries because there is a whole lot of knowledge there for sure.
Yeah, Gaia is one that I've always
I've watched
really enjoyed.
a lot of Gaia.
Yeah.
I'm currently on a not Gaia spree.
For sure.
Well, I try to like balance myself out.
Yeah.
You know, you got to stay 1 foot here in real life and 1 foot in the other life.
Yeah. Definitely.
But, I mean, I'm sure like, haven't you ever experienced like moments where you had a gut feeling or where you had a foreign thought and you dismissed it? Like,
like
constantly.
Yeah.
On the daily.
yeah, or even
I don't dismiss them anymore.
even that little movie reel in your mind. Like, why would that pop up right now? That is that. It's exactly what you're doing. You're just not pinpointing the source of it and the why of it. And so you're looking past it. But I just learned how to like concentrate, I guess, on it. And now, every time I have an experience with somebody, right, I'm always like, yeah, fucking right. Are we allowed to swear? Oh my God.
Yeah. You're right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm always like, yeah, right. This isn't real. And then I used to like go into like a full body, like physical panic because I'm not going to walk around telling people this crap. And the first time, so I organized a group reading with a medium that a friend of mine met. And only 2 people in that group kind of knew what was up with me. But she went to her on the low and then brought her to me and was like, this is valid. Let's do it. So I set up a group of 8. And this lady did these wonderful, heartwarming readings for this group of girls. And then at the end, like, called me out my name and was like, you're a medium. You're supposed to be doing this. You're ignoring your calling. The dead are lined up behind you.
Oh, God.
Oh, that's fucking scary.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh, you just called me out in front of all these people. Like, holy cow. And then that kind of catapulted me into like this, okay. And I had kind of 3 more experiences similar to that. And so each of those people like voluntarily offered to like mentor me for small periods of time just on their own, which was so cool. Serendipitous, like I said. And I went to the Milwaukee Public Museum. And I work with kids with special needs is one of my jobs. And I had a boy with autism and he was in the butterfly exhibit. And I actually had my little daughter with me. So I could not go into the exhibit because of a stroller. So I was watching him in the exhibit and I was sitting outside on the bench and they had their security guard at the door. And the security guard's grandmother was like, I'm here. I want to talk with you. And I was like, no. And I totally tried to like reject her.
Wow.
And I like broke into sweats and I'm like freaking out. And then finally I was like, nope, you need to listen to your little mentors. And like, it's arrogance and it's insecurity and that's ego in the worst way. And I don't get to decide right? It's not for me to regulate.
Right.
So I answered the phone.
Yeah.
And I went to the lady and I was like, hey, this is going to sound so crazy. I don't know what you believe in. No offense, please. But did your grandma just recently pass away? And she like was like, oh my God, yeah. And she's like a middle-aged security guard. And I was like, okay, well, in her case, I'm like, she's singing at a stove. She's listening to some golden oldies. She is showing me a bunch of music boxes, trinkets, like little old music boxes on a vanity. And she's telling me that she has her voice back and don't you worry. That was what she was saying. Don't you worry. And I was like, I'm really sorry. And I'm like spitting out like, oh, because I'm so nervous. And like, I've never done that before, you know?
Yeah.
And she starts bawling and asks if she can hug me. And she goes into this big story about how her grandmother raised her, and she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and cancer of the lung simultaneously. And she brought her to her apartment and cared for her the last year of her life. And through all of that, she couldn't speak and also was very confused. And when she was getting upset, she would turn her music box collection on for her.
Oh.
And then I guess she had a bunch of them. And then besides that, they cooked together. So, I mean, those are very like simple things. And I like left that experience like rocked. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This is not real. And I didn't tell anybody about it for like a week.
Yeah.
Because how do you process that,
Yeah,
right?
that's hard. That's insane. Like having something so profound like that happen is like it's with anything. Like even just experiencing death alone, it's almost like anything that pulls you out of like, this is my daily life. These are the people around me. This is where I'm headed in my direction.
This is what I'm supposed to do.
This is what I'm supposed to do. This is the direction I'm headed. And then when something comes in, it's like a snake comes in. It's like, surprise.
Yeah, and
this happens. It completely blasts your entire like your reality collapses in a way to like.
And
this
it
isn't
did, and
supposed to
I
happen.
had like a huge like personal crisis because who the fuck am I? You know, like. First of all, who am I to get permission to see into her world like that? And who am I that she's not, that her grandmother can't, you know, go, I don't know. It's a huge, like, self-worth thing. Like, and it's a big responsibility. So I sat there, like, you know, tripping balls for a few days and kind of trying to unpack that. And it was a struggle. Yeah. And now I get less nervous every time. But even still. And then I had a really great mentor later on who was like, I do dreams is actually how all my shit started way back. Like it's a whole nother thing. But they were like, you have rules, and the rules are you don't tell people if you dream death. That's a no-no. And you don't ever interpret their message for them. You give them over point blank. It's not like, oh, it could be this. Like I did one reading, all of them are spontaneous, where the person that came was tapping their heart. And I had seen that once before. So the human arrogance in me immediately was like, I know what this means. It's a symbol. And tapping the heart means a heart condition, right? So I was saying to this gentleman that I was giving this reading to, like, hey, it's a heart condition. And he's like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. And I was finally like, step out of your ego. Stop trying to control the dialogue and worrying about what he's going to think of you. And I just said, okay, let's rewind. I'm getting 3 taps on the chest. And it turned out that the child that I was tapping in with had a Down syndrome and did not speak, and their family thing was I love you.
Okay. The 3
taps.
Wow.
That is pretty interesting.
Wow.
But it's a big, you try to make a language out of it for yourself to understand, and it's a big leap to understand that I'm not supposed to understand. I'm just the cell phone, and you got to take the call, and I'm a device, not an interpreter, and it would be really wrong of me to try to tell you your message. Right. And so now I go, here's what I'm getting. Maybe it'll make sense to you. It definitely doesn't make sense to me. If it doesn't make sense to you now, I can't help you, and I'm really sorry. Yeah. And that's it.
That's amazing.
I think it's kind of, well, this is awesome, but I think it's almost societally sad because, I mean, we've got all of these reports from governments and agencies that have been proving this sort of shit for decades upon decades, going back thousands of years into like old records of this stuff happening. And for some reason, our society has been twisted into believing that this sort of stuff is something you've got to hide, something that like if you bring to the forefront, like even if like the most talented ever at this sort of stuff, like came waltzing in and with absolute confidence and zero ego, like could say this stuff, people would jump at the chance to attack them, to try to tear them down. And it's like, this is a skill just like anything else a human can do.
This is my big problem.
Yeah, if someone's like super talented at like building something, and then people find out, they're like, oh wow, that kid's like a natural builder.
Yeah.
He gets fast tracked into all of these building things and like hailed as like the exalted. But we have so many of these people going all around, and they're set up in like psychic shops, and you know the stigma that goes with that. I know you're feeling that stigma that's attacking you right now, and I'm like upset because all of the good that could be passed like through that spiritual realm of like however you want to conceptualize it, it's gonna come from people like you and your crowd and all that stuff, and yet there's no like acceptable like viable route for you guys to take.
I mean, I and that's kind of partially why I don't like super go out and advertise my business out there. And it's not because I'm super worried about like the social stigmas attached to that. It's more so because, you know, if people are skeptical, right? And I'm a skeptic, so this is coming directly from my own train of thought in regard to others. If we're coming from a place of skepticism immediately, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And so if I allow spirit to unfold organically, then it doesn't have anything to do with me, and it leaves people more disarmed so that they can kind of give themselves over and surrender to the experience. And I feel like everybody on some level, like I said, they can do these things. And so like, quote unquote, the guru in me's job is to recognize the guru in you so that you can recognize that. Like, I want to teach people how to do this themselves. And I always leave a reading saying, or a visit when people come visit me for things other than like deceased. I want to get you to the point that you don't need me, right? Like that, you don't need me. You just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
You can do everything I can do.
Right.
So let's get there.
My favorite people are the people who say that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
When like gurus or like teachers or anything of that nature, all the people that we like to follow, their whole thing is like, I'm not some great and special creature. Like what lives in me lives in you.
Yep.
I just had the door busted open, so I don't have a choice.
It's the force, it's the flow, it's God, whatever you want to call it. I use the word God often, and I always know that how I am using that word is probably different than how others are going to take it, based on what they kind of have preconceived attached.
I think the easiest way for me has been like some people talk about God in the uppercase G. And I mean, the uppercase G is basically just source, universe, all
is my
of
favorite.
Creative consciousness, everything that is. I think there are still like lowercase G's roaming around though.
You know, I think that the relevance of like modern religion, so like I love anthropology and like religion because I think it's fascinating because it's this hugely corrupt perspective of the human experiencing source. Right? But we are so flawed and so small by comparison that we can't possibly thoroughly express the experience. So our best at it is religion. And that's beautiful because it is a really good, like almost personification of how flawed we are. Right. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful, flawed.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And that's a, I guess the way that I've always looked at it is like, religion is it's like a distillation of the way that we interact in our lives. Like it's not necessarily like even stories or any of that. It's more, how do I explain it? It's like humans over thousands of years started recognizing that there were patterns in the way that our lives happened.
Exactly.
Archetypical characters,
archetypes, and like all of those things. Like the you know, the hero's journey idea. Like there's these archetypal things like overcoming difficult situations and hard things in your life. And over thousands and thousands of years, humans have been paying attention and being like, these are the common themes that continually come up in, you know, most people's lives. And then stories are written based on those, and they're distilled into these like very, very condensed versions of the human experience as a whole.
That not condensation. What's the word I'm looking for?
Condensed?
But I like, that condensing. Oh my God, that's terrible. That, not moisture. That that condensing of it is isn't that what we do to ourselves though? I mean, isn't that the perfect explanation for where we went wrong here? We are always condensing ourselves, which is what you were just saying about, you know, the government or whatever shutting down that we can do these things, right? And now it's this holy, societally, like, nope, I don't want it thing. Yeah,
Right.
frowned upon thing. And I think, there is truth. I think Jesus was a real person, just like Buddha was a real person, just like some form of all of the other archetypes were real people. I just think that they came at a perfect time, at a perfect moment where the skepticism was lesser and the need was greater. And here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think that's part of why we have such a problem in our modern world right now, and why there's so much suffering is we don't really have that. It's getting there. We don't have that broad like cultural narrative that we can all look at and say, hey, like there's something.
This makes sense.
There's something bigger that we're all doing here. Let's live your life, right? But
shift into the collective, man.
But there's I think that's one of the biggest issues, like why people suffer so much in their relationships and in everything.
Well, and
it's like we don't all have a common understanding of what it is exactly that we're doing here.
Yep.
So there's all of this conflict and all of these different ideas and needs that are clashing with each other because there's nothing that's aiming everybody in the same direction.
Agreed.
So, but I think whatever is happening right now, like awakening wise and people getting more in touch spiritually, and also like bringing in the scientific aspect of that as well, like how they're starting to kind of how they're starting to connect to each other. I think we're at least in some decent amounts of groups of people are starting to realign with that story.
This story is real, and the rest of it is not. It's a false reality that we have clung to for security and because of social conditioning.
Yeah.
And largely because the key players, this is how they retain power over the masses so that things are beneficial and controlled where the top 1% would like it.
Yeah.
I'm a big don't get me started on conspiracies.
That was how our channel started, so don't worry.
I love it.
Well, right there with you.
But I think, religion is both a great thing and a super dangerous thing.
Yes.
I think going back to what I said earlier about like levels, right? If you're a level 2, you need a framework to cling to so that like you can map this out a little bit, right? Because you need something. Everybody needs to be connected to source somehow. But if you're very like new to it and you're this fresh baby face little naive thing in the world, you need a little bit of protection.
It's like you're trying to throw your dog into a calculus class.
Totally. Like
they're going to be like,
what's happening?
What's happening?
What a brilliant ploy that was, because like you guys were just saying a minute ago, we all need like something to give us a direction, a purpose, a greater understanding, something to connect more of us from just outside of families into one thing that we're all going for, be it heaven or like our country's going to be the best, or we're going to go and take over other places and show everybody how we're the best. The human mind almost conglomerates into this place where we need something bigger than us to point us. But we're all like level 2s, so we're looking at it and we're being like, oh, it must be another level 2.5 or something. They got the plan right.
Yeah.
When realistically, it's this like broader concept of consciousness and all connection and stuff like that. And we just can't even, as like a whole, we can't even like grasp it yet. So we're still allowing all of these individual factions to direct us at perceived purpose.
And everybody wants to know, but nobody wants to be taught. And they don't really want to know. They want to want to know what they want to know, right? And I know, and that's it. And that's the huge thing. And I think like religion demands that people are very removed from, so like, I think the difference for me, right? The reason I can do these things and other people can't is because for whatever reason, I just have like a super intimate connection or relationship with source, right? And I know in that it does not work for me. People like religion because religion works for them. I pray, I ask for forgiveness, I'm forgiven. Okay, please, dear God, I really want this.
Yeah.
And then boom, give it to me.
Yeah.
But source is supposed to work with you and work through you.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to be a vessel that is basically here exploring that, like personified. And I think we look for figureheads that have human faces because we need them to relate to, right? So like, I know some people and I don't mean this in a negative way, but they're Christian. So obviously their values are very defined. And I sat down with them at like a meeting of the round table. And I was like, but why?
Yeah.
And they were like, well, because Buddha is irrelevant. And I'm like, but why? Because I think Buddha and Jesus are the same thing. It's the same entity, right? But the people in the region where Buddha was at that time, they wouldn't have connected to a Jesus and vice versa. And we're all Jesusing, right? Like Jesus walked around. Well, he's just the most widely practiced around here. So like I lean into that reference. He walked around healing thousands, right? But how come he only had 12 disciples? Because those were the people that he impacted so fiercely that were so connected to him, right? That they decided to commit then their lives to that same message. We're all Jesusing. So if I'm a level 20, then it's my responsibility to quote unquote Jesus for all the levels underneath me. And some I will retain as disciples. I'll impact them so profoundly that they will carry part of my message, not really mine, the Spirit's message, through with them, and that will totally reroute them. But there will be a lot of people that I just heal momentarily, and that'll be it.
Yeah.
And so like I know some of my quote unquote disciples that I've picked up, right? I know who they are. And then there's other people where I'm like, oh, this is a temporary fix. Yeah. And then there's other people where I can't do anything. When I was first in all of this, I was like, I'm going to save my paternal grandmother who raised me and I owe her the world. And I traveled down to Arizona when they were going through something awful. And I hadn't seen her in 8 years. And I was like, I'm going to use my powers to save this woman whom I owe my life, right?
Yeah.
And I got down there, and the purpose in that was for me to sit the fuck down and learn, you don't get to make those decisions, girlfriend.
Right. Yeah.
This was, quote unquote, a wasted trip for the purpose you came, but you learned that you don't get to decide.
Yeah.
I don't get to heal who I want because I like them.
Yeah.
So I have had
for sure
interesting things with people I didn't like.
Yeah. That was part of my journey, both with my mom and my grandma, actually, because I was very, very, every time that I would see them, I understood kind of the suffering that they were in, and how how a lot of it was self-inflicted in a way, about how there are things that they could have controlled to maybe still be alive now today. And there was a lot of like trying to work with them intellectually and trying to work with them like, hey, change this, or if you think this, or like maybe do this differently. Yeah. And that's a part of the heaviness, I guess, of me of losing them, because it was like, oh, I didn't do enough. I couldn't do enough. But it's like that
doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I think, and I don't know, because like I said, it doesn't work the way Hollywood makes it. And I am good about respecting boundaries, especially when we're having a general conversation. Yeah. So if that is the case, I don't know, and I'm sorry. With the exception of suicide. Yeah. I think that when a person passes, there are no shoulda, wouldas, right? Whatever they did or did not do was part of the path, and that is what was needed to acquire the traits that they had. And I think suicide's fine. It's just an early recycling. You needed a start fresh, hard reset. Yeah. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. And
you would love Teal Swan.
That's a conversation you need to have with Source.
Literally, it's
all of the trouble.
Everything that you're saying sounds like I'm talking to
Really?
Teal Swan. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
I'm so excited to hear about her.
Because the number one reason that people gravitate towards absolutely hating Teal Swan is that stance on suicide. Like, she's obviously like, no, I want you to do well. I want the best things for you, but it's that exact thing. And then people took that concept, ran with it, and were like, she's a cult leader who wants you to commit suicide. No. And it's like, no, that's the worst thing she's ever expressed. Yeah. And if you're already on that vibe, you are going to love Teal Swan, love her. Dude.
Yeah. I'm definitely, I'm not in support of that. Obviously, I'll do because that is not the path. That's you forcing the path, right? Which I sit here and I'm a big, there's flow.
There's a big difference between people who were here to reset and people who feel so disconnected from their true source and true calling that they want to reset. Yeah. And the people who want to reset, every time they get touched with love, they get like a blast, and they're like, oh shit, no, that's not my shit. I imagine people who really were meant to reset, they're like unavoidable. Like that Dan who went to our high school. Like, it was like, it didn't matter. It didn't matter what happened. His soul had a specific thing. He had awesomeness happen, and it was like that's the whole point. You were meant to impact all of these hundreds of or thousands of people that were like rippled from
and
this
I don't
effect.
love it. Like, I'm not sitting here and saying, oh, I am not glorifying that. I do not support that.
No.
At all. But, you know, that is a personal decision between a person and source. And that's really not for us to ponder because that's judgment, and judgment is ego for sure.
I mean, that's us coming in and being like, no. Like the contract that you made with your soul before you came here, I supersede that because I want you here.
My expectations are God. No, totally. So I think that's like a big thing. And, you know, to go with my first like thing where I was like, oh, I have it pretty figured out, I think that's fine. Like, you're going to recycle. And the traits that you refuse to learn here in this setting are just going to be recycled, rerouted. And you're going to learn in the next setting. And those two traits are going to be sitting there still. And that's fine. I mean, that's you. That's not about me. I can't.
That's
for sure.
Interesting and enlightening perspective, that one, because
and
it brings the focus away from like, oh, look at the things that I'm doing in this life, and it brings it more into like, okay, I'm 29 now. These are the things that I've identified in my lifetime that have been the biggest issues that I can't seem to resolve. So these are likely the issues I'm here to resolve.
Yeah.
Because no matter what I do, no matter where I go, no matter how I tackle it, these issues still arise. So these are the issues that I was here to work on.
And I mean, like, I'm sitting here, right? Like, super probably like, oh, zen, whatever. I have huge character flaws. Like, I have one of the worst tempers ever.
Good. I am glad that you admit to that stuff. Because when people are like, nah,
toxic positivity.
Yeah,
you're a liar.
Like, I don't give a shit about the good stuff about you. Show me your vulnerable spots, and I will judge if we're going to be compatible. Because if I can't see your vulnerable spots, I'm immediately going to start assuming that you are a murderer. If I don't find some vulnerable spots in the first moments we meet, man,
I'm watching
you're
my
probably going to murder me.
Yeah, you're a sociopath. You're lying.
And you don't know how deep that goes. Like, it can go real deep.
Yeah, well, I listen to some true crime podcasts, so I do know how deep it can go. Go 6 feet deep.
So many women are into these true crime podcasts, and it's like,
problem.
you guys are the victims of them every single time. It's like, oh, this woman got nabbed from her home and put in a trunk.
Okay.
This woman got tied to a ship. Like,
let's be funny now. I'm gonna tell you, I sent one of my best friends your guys' address before I pulled in, because I was like, and then I made a joke like, in case I get chopped up in little pieces, this is where I am.
That's responsible as fuck. I'm glad you did that.
Good. This is my time.
I encourage all women to be that smart.
I know that it's like, it's, coming into a place you've never been before, somebody's home. It's like, what am I walking into? I don't know. And at the same time, for us, it's like, oh, we've never met this person before either. That could be crazy. But
every time it's like, oh, is it going to be a murderer? Let's find out.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the same path, like, okay, this is so controversial, but like, if I did get chopped up in a million pieces by you guys, I would think like, wow, some people are going to really benefit from purpose in that, right? Like, dang, Mom, I hope you make a really cool foundation.
Those house cleaners who have to deal with all that gore, you're going to change them, man.
I'm going to change. Yeah, like, ooh. No, that might be trauma. I think that's something else.
Probably.
It's a little bit of
paycheck. I don't know.
Balance.
A paycheck for somebody.
I mean, but trauma and money have their place. It's all energy.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
sure. I've got some, like, I hate talking about early beginnings because I feel people are super committed to their victim complexes, whether or not they want to face that.
We all are so much.
Yeah.
Even like in the space of like, I'm angry at myself and kicking myself to do more and all that stuff. I'm still like, part of me is still being like, but no, I'm the victim. And I'm like, stop playing this game.
Yes. No, it's totally like that. So like, I think that, I have like some good stuff to like share, I guess, as far as early on, but people's knee-jerk reaction is to be like, oh, that's so hard. No, dude, like, I'm telling you this because these are like Girl Scout badges, yo. Like, this has been great.
That's kind of how I view it too.
I want to wear my vest.
Look at these things that I have gone through and properly like integrated.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it because I always say like, I'm not telling you this because I'm so great. I'm telling you this because you're so great and you can do it.
Yeah.
And people look at you like, oh, well, first you're a victim, like, oh, poor you. And then, oh, you're just saying that because you want to talk about how strong you were. Like, no, we're all like, you got this. You're fine. It's going to be good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the.
Or it's going to be bad, but you decide.
I guess.
I don't know.
That's true. That's how like anything, people highly misinterpret or underestimate, I think, like how impactful suffering really is in your life, because when you're in a comfortable position and you're just going through your life and you see
Complacency's a killer.
and you see somebody who is having a hard time, it's easy to be like that's all right, you got this, pat on the back.
Totally.
But once you get into it yourself, and you're like, this is some shit.
This is heavy.
This is some real shit that I now understand. Like why some of the old like country western songs were written and shit, right?
Yeah,
just just the heavy like
grief,
just how intense life really can be.
Yep.
It's something that I never really understood or respected for a very long time.
Yeah.
And up until probably this past year, I was like, I don't think I really ever had like super, super difficult things hit me. I was always kind of skating by on these like,
well, I mean,
it's like, oh, that was hard, but I got it.
You're blessed
that was
for
hard,
this,
but I got
and
it.
you're blessed for that,
You
and
know?
it's all a blessing in itself somehow. And I like catchphrases. I mentioned that.
Yeah.
And one of my big ones is, I swear to God, I probably say this to almost every client, quote unquote, that I see is, suffering is suffering, and it is either an excuse to do nothing or a reason to do better. And so like I went through a lot of like early traumas, especially like with my bio dad, and I have no negative emotions about that, because that wasn't really about me, like you have to be able to separate yourself too from the traumas that you experience. Like it's not all about you. Sometimes too we get stuck in the whole purpose trap, like what is the purpose, why is this happening? Well, maybe it's their purpose, not yours. And maybe you just need to sit down and like separate yourself, be serious. Like you are not the sun in this solar system, buddy. I mean, you are, but you're not. Not the collective.
We both are and are not.
Yes, that's
we
the
all
profound.
struggle with that. It is and it isn't.
It is.
It is all
and
within.
It isn't.
It is all within just as much as it is without. So, it's that. What do you call it? That those cool art things that go down in a spiral forever. The Fibonacci spiral things that forever go.
And that's like all naturally occurring throughout.
That's what I don't know if you know who Nassim Haramein is.
God, you guys are making me feel really bad about myself.
No,
I'm totally kidding.
These are just teachers, like, because we've been on these paths for a while, and we
Yeah.
always give each other the teachers we find and use. And
He's a physicist, and he talks. Me too.
oh,
Me too.
that guy. Okay.
Nassim Haramein, he's a physicist, and he talks a lot about how a lot of our fundamental ideas of how the universe works are very wrong. But how, like, within every single atom is literally a representation of the entire universe.
Yeah.
So, like, within one atom of your body lies all of the information that the entire universe has. And and he breaks it down scientifically. So he's like, no matter where you are, no matter who you're connected to, like, you have access to all of those things. Everything is within and also without. Yeah. It's like dualistically both things.
And this is why, like, I love science first and history first, and then I kind of lean into spiritualism second, because those things are much more tangible, and that's kind of what we're missing right now, the tangibility that a lot of people need per the level that they're at. So I love to start conversations that way, because people can relate to things that they can somewhat concretely understand. So I lean into like I explained earlier, like, have you ever had a memory? Tell me about your 9th birthday party. Walk me through that. And I make them walk me through the whole thing, the skeptics, right? Okay, that was a great memory. That's exactly what tapping into spirit's like. So now you know that you can do that in past tense. Why are you believing you can't do that in future tense only because you haven't? Yeah. And why don't you try? Right. And you'd be surprised. Like, things just need to be concrete. We're missing that. For sure. Science and spirituality are the exact damn same thing.
They are.
Quantum physics.
We just haven't interpreted it all yet to connect the pieces.
The missing
link. They haven't gotten to the point where they make sense connecting.
Right, for sure.
But it's constant
in Thor's
intersection.
world, they're the same thing. So
you guys are gonna hate me. I actually hate superheroes.
Whatever, you can hate superheroes.
No Marvel allowed.
But, hey, we are over an hour. We're at an hour and 4 minutes. We did it.
We did it.
We did the thing.
Thanks for having me.
That was an awesome conversation.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Tomorrow at noon, I believe it's going to be a little bit of a switch up. We're going to be talking to my actual personal trainer. So we're going to go on the fitness zone tomorrow.
Mind, body, soul, trifecta.
Yeah,
you need it all.
But yeah, he's the owner of Body by Design.
We'll get there
gyms.
tomorrow.
We'll get there tomorrow, but you guys can expect that tomorrow. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Thank you, Danii, so much for being here, and we will see y'all in the next one.
Hiya.